For our first topic, let's start in Malaysia. This is for the shelters for the homeless are expanding while the MCO lockdown is enforced. Kuala Lumpur's homeless population is expected to increase as businesses find it tough to keep afloat and retain staff, resulting in people losing their jobs and ending up on the streets. In anticipation of a rise in the number of homeless, it is learned that Kuala Lumpur City Hall is now planning to open up two more community centers for the homeless. This is to ensure that no one ends up without a roof over their head while the Movement Control Order MCO is being enforced. Currently, there are two transit centers in Jahan Pasong and Asiang Shanghai in Jahahang in Kuala Lumpur. There are also four community centers and multi-purpose halls under DVKL currently housing the homeless. These are the Sentul Peninsula and Sasuwasha community centers as well as Amada. Okay, so the multi-purpose house has been used for homeless shelter. Now we cannot confirm there is going to be an increase in homelessness, but people are without jobs, and so we have been observing the movement. So we have opened three more community centers. Now I wanted to bring this up mostly just to show that people in Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia have a place to go. You know, we know in the US 20 million people are going to lose their job and go somewhere, and usually when they do, they go on the streets. So unless there's a disaster like FEMA, then yes, the government gives funding. But it's nice to see that the government in these countries are giving a place for all families to go. Saying that, I want to move on to a different segment, and this one takes place in Japan, and this is about a PC club. Now, PC club or PC cafes are popular all over Asia, particularly Japan and Korea, and they're actually catching on in Vietnam, but they're a little different in Vietnam. Now, I'm going to read this article. Japan's homeless internet cafe refugees seek shelter. Okay. Now, a little backstory before I read. In these countries, as you know, many men have a hard time getting a daily wage and go renting a hotel for the night. So people, yes, would game during the day, well, afternoon and evening, but they could pay a small extra fee like $10 and they could sleep in nice, comfortable chairs, air conditioned, and they'd have the bathroom to use as well. So they would do this instead of renting a hotel room for the night. And they did this in Korea as well. So let's read. This is a new exploding population of men that are going to be homeless because there's going to be very few shelters for men, unlike women and children. So thousands of homeless internet cafe refugees in Japan risk being turned out onto the streets as the coronavirus pandemic forces the sudden closure of the inequality Japanese 24/7 comic book havens. The ambiguous all-night internet and magma comic cafes offer couches, computers, comics, soft drinks, and shower facilities for overnight stays, typically priced around 2,000 yen. So that's like $20. And it's an estimated 4,000 people down on their luck make their home in such cafes in Tokyo alone. And activists worry that shutting them down could lead to suicides and spike in the rough sleepers. Some local authorities are now opening shelters to accommodate net cafe refugees and keep them from sleeping out in the open. One 58-year-old occasional construction site worker told AFP his main aim was avoiding getting wet, as he founded a roof over his head at a shelter converted from Material Arts Center in Yokohama near Tokyo. I thought sleeping on a bench at a train station or subway stairs going underground, said the gray-haired man who declined to give his name. His net cafe informed him at the weekend that it would be closing due to state of emergency measures in Japan to stem the spread of the virus. I used to go here to work from the net at cafes. Now I sometimes have a job and sometimes I don't due to the virus, he said, adding that it was nearly impossible to find a permanent job at his age. Renting an apartment in Japan requires a very expensive deposit and presents tricky administration hurdles, leaving the net cafes as a convenient option. Yeah, so there's a little bit more insight. Japan and Korea have this thing called key money. Basically, you pay 10, 20, $30,000 at once, and then your rent is like 2, 3, 4, 500 a month. So very cheap rent in the long run, but you have to have a big, like a down payment of a house to even move in, and you get that back when you leave. I have nowhere to go and few acquaintances, said the man. The temporary shelters at the judo hall, operated by the local authorities, have been designated by a team by award-winning Japanese architects students. Residents sleep on camp-style cots or cardboard beds, portrayed off from the frame of sturdy paper tubes, with cloth hanging from the top of the cubicle to the floor. Ban is famed for other emergency shelters and buildings, including the cardboard cathedral for Christchurch in New Zealand. The aim is to provide a safe place for those driven out of the virus crisis. Okay, and this also happens in Korea too. When I was in Korea, I visited Suwon once, and I walked off of the subway station onto their main street, and these homeless girls lived in those sheds, the ones in your backyard in America that you store lawn equipment, tools. Well, these girls would basically be wearing bikinis. They'd have a little bed, a chair, and they'd be waving at you. And then, yeah, so at night they just close the shed and they sleep there and they do their services there. But so I can imagine it's not just these men, but a lot of these kind of girls are going to have the same problems. And I want to move on because, these society puts so much emphasis on men and women, well, women and children, but they leave the men out to dry versus trying to keep the family together. Now, this is going to move on to my last article about this. Now, this one takes place in Myanmar. A Myanmar man self-immolates after losing a job. Okay, immolates means sets himself on fire. So police said a man from Myanmar committed suicide by setting himself on fire in the province today after losing his job. Officers from Don Chon police station found the charred body near a pond, about 60 meters from Nongsong village where the unnamed victim lived. The man had suffered severe burns to the head and torso and limbs. Police found a gallon of container of fuel and a lighter about 30 meters from the body. The wife of the victim said he had worked at a grist mill and lived in Thailand for the past 20 years, but when he turned 60, the mill stopped hiring him. He then became stressed and depressed. After seeing that her husband was missing from their bed this morning, the wife went in search and found his body shortly after. Okay, Thailand does not have Social Security or safety nets for the retired people, so it's more like living day to day. And that was always a bummer to me. When I visited America, I was always bummed that there was no PC room or kind of things like that. So as you can see, the PC rooms did serve more than one purpose and more than one clientele. Anyway, what are your thoughts of the day about how your government is handling the homeless people, whether it's women, children, or whether it's going to be all these new men, they're homeless men? And what do you think about the untold stories about these men that are depressed, the depression that's going to be on the rise, these men that are self-killing themselves? Anyway, leave your comments below. I'd really, really be interested in hearing how your country is dealing with it, or maybe your personal story that relates to these issues. Like, comment, subscribe below. Well, that will conclude Loyal World News. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Feel free to like, subscribe, or drop a comment below. If you're on the go, listen to my podcast with the link provided in the description. I will see you tomorrow to share more world news.